A very powerful House Republican coming out against the reauthorization of the Export-Import Bank.
What? Something weird and remarkable and good is happening in Washington. More politicians are taking a clear stand against corporate welfare.
You really want to turn your back on tradition?
Yeah, some of us do.
It is wrong for the government to choose winners and send your money to corporations.
That's what the government's Export-Import Bank does. But the new majority leader said this week the sector can do it. That upsets some businesses.
Our ExIm bank needs to be reauthorized.
It upsets Democrats.
Every other developed nation in the world has an export credit authority.
We're in for an unusually clear and clean fight over corporate welfare.
That's the way the system works.
That's our show tonight.
And now, John Stossel.
Capitalism lets entrepreneurs raise money so they can scale up, get their products and services to more people. Where there's free competition, those with the best ideas get more money, and then the best and cheapest products and services spread far and wide. That's why capitalism is great. But then there's crapitalism, crony capitalism. That's where capitalists partner with politicians, and the politicians give your money to capitalists because the politicians know who's most deserving of help. Or so they say. I call that corporate welfare, or crapitalism. There are a bunch of government agencies that fuel this crony capitalism. The Small Business Administration gives out grants, so does the Energy Department. You know about their gifts to companies like Solyndra, but the biggest government supporter of business is the Export-Import Bank. Here's what the bank says about itself.
The Export-Import Bank's financial products enable exporters of all sizes to increase their sales, protect against the risks of international trade, and export with confidence.
Export with confidence. That sounds good. Who can object to that? Well, the chairman of the House Finance Committee, for one, Texas Congressman Jeb Hensarling. So, Congressman, why?
Why do I object?
Yes.
Well, it's pretty clear. I think you got it right. You have a fairly clever term. But it is corporate welfare at the end of the day. Now, 1 in 1,000 probably have never heard of the Export-Import Bank. The one who does receives a financial benefit. That's substantially Fortune 500 companies like GE, like Boeing, who could easily finance these things themselves. And so, John, you have the Export-Import Bank claiming they create American jobs, but we just heard testimony that when the Export-Import Bank helps Boeing to sell a jet to Air India, it hurts Delta Airlines. There's thousands of pilots they can't help. We've also heard, for example, from Valero Energy in my state of Texas, when Export-Import Bank helps, for example, GE and others to build an oil refinery in Turkey, it hurts the domestic refining industry. And so on, as one economist has put it, for every job Export-Import creates in exports, they kill an American job domestically. So it's not helping us. And then, John, it's costing the taxpayer money.
But what people can see, what you're up against, is that you can see the jobs created at Boeing, and they have a concentrated interest in lobbying. But maybe the guys at Valero, and you have the Valero example, but the smaller companies, they don't even know what's happening to them.
Well, John, I think I know what the challenges are ahead of me. By being in the midst of this fight, I've probably put, 1,000 lobbyist kids through college. Anybody who can spell lobbyist has now gotten a contract to go lobby in favor of ExIm. But, it's just not fair, And again, I know a lot of people haven't heard of it, but I got a small business in my district run by a guy named Hal Richards in Terrell, Texas. He says, I export. I don't use ExIm, and yet it's my taxpayer money that's being sent to countries like China and Russia and the Sudan where there's human rights abuses.
All right, but please respond to what the bank says here in its commercial for itself.
With the Export-Import Bank, U.S. exporters from bustling city centers to local family farms can turn once distant business possibilities into reality. International Building Systems of Texas makes prefabricated houses for export. Their buyers range from the swamps of Nigeria to the deserts of Algeria. Naturally, lenders were wary of extending loans because of the countries involved. With our guarantee, lenders felt reassured.
Lenders felt reassured. Isn't that wonderful?
Well, what we hear, John, is that once lenders know that it's the taxpayers' money that's on the line, they quit doing their due diligence. They don't care about the risk because it's not on their balance sheet, it's on the taxpayers' balance sheet. Last I looked, the national debt is $17 trillion and increasing. I keep a national debt clock going in our committee room. I don't think the taxpayer wants this on their balance sheet. And again, this is all about kind of the Washington insider economy versus the Main Street competitive economy. I mean, the face of ExIm is going to be some small business in my state. But the true beneficiaries, again, are Fortune 500 companies that could easily finance this themselves. And instead, they're financing, a lobby effort to keep this thing going, and you can't even say they create net new jobs. And we just had testimony from the Congressional Budget Office that if ExIm would use Main Street accounting, GAAP accounting, what we call fair value accounting, they're losing money for the taxpayer, and it's not right, it's not fair, it doesn't create jobs, it costs taxpayer money. We ought to end the corporate welfare, and yet my Democratic friends say the only way we can help exports is with subsidies. Why don't we have a regulatory...
Your Republican friends, too.
Well, regrettably, a number of those. We are helping to inform their discretion and their knowledge at the moment. But why don't we have a free enterprise alternative? We have the highest corporate tax rate of any industrialized nation in the world. If we want, quote-unquote, a level playing field, let's bring down the corporate tax rate.
Thank you, Congressman Hensarling. As you say, I agree with you. Only free enterprise is moral.